Hello and welcome to Clear Channel's In Touch with the Ozarks. We are Kevin and Liz, and we are sitting now behind our microphones with Dr. Christina Brown from the Forest Institute, licensed marital and family therapist, and welcome to our studio.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. There's so much we could talk about with a therapist. First of all, that's just our own personal problems.
It's not about us.
It's not about us.
Not this time.
But one of the things that we'd been talking about before when we just met you a little bit ago was the social media and the implications that it has. Everybody knows there's good stuff that goes with it. You meet up and catch up with old friends. You learn things. There's all kinds of great sharing going on. But there's also some bad stuff that can go on, and it can affect our kids and adults.
Yeah, absolutely. Social media is here to stay. I mean, the fact is we can't change that. We can't deny that it's there. And part of getting on board with social media is learning about the limitations, the positives, and the negatives, just like you said. And I think part of our job as parents is to really talk to our kids about what those negatives can be, because kids think they're invincible. They think they can put anything out there and nothing will happen as a consequence. And that's a problem we see.
Well, and when they're that age, they don't think about consequences anyway.
Absolutely. They think about me and today.
Right. Yeah. Me and today. That's exactly what
kids
they think about.
There's so many different social medias, so many different sites you can go to.
Right.
I mean, it used to be Facebook was the one, but now kids are kind of going away from Facebook.
Right.
You know, it's easier for me, it would be, to monitor my kids on Facebook because I'm on there.
Right. You could stalk them,
Right.
creep them.
I absolutely do.
Yeah.
And, or Twitter even. But, I mean, now there's Instagram and all these others. Snapchat is a scary one. And these, the ones that you could take, is that the one where you can, 6 seconds later, the picture disappears?
Yeah.
And they think it disappears. That's the problem.
Right. They don't realize that everything is out there. Everything that they've ever done in their entire lives is out there. Right. Kevin and I have talked so many times, Dr. Brown, about having grown up without it, and how if everyone had a camera on them like they do now, we would probably most likely be in jail.
Right.
None of us would have jobs.
Right.
Absolutely not.
That's right. We'd have our reputations.
Yeah.
But, truly, literally everything they do now, somebody is going to commemorate in one way or another, either, via text or photo or video. Mm-hmm. And there's so many violent things that are being videoed.
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how many times I've watched kids beating up another child, and someone else is just standing there videotaping the whole thing.
And they put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like it's something to be
funny.
proud of. Yeah.
Right.
And they don't step in, whereas it used to be if you watch someone getting beat up, you would probably step in or intervene in some way, but now we just
whip out the phone.
Record it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and the violence, and then, of course, the predators that are out there. Yeah. I mean, what are the biggest dangers for, let's say, kids and things that you as a parent need to be looking out for if your kids are on any social media?
Well, I think most important to let kids know is that the person you're talking to through technology isn't necessarily who they say they are. Mm-hmm. And that's something you need to be aware of. So I would suggest that parents set up really strict parameters around who their friends can engage with. So, for example, I have 2 teenagers, and on Facebook, they are only allowed to friend family members who are grown-ups, and then people they know in real life who are their own age. They are not allowed to friend their parents' moms and dads, because that's just, they don't need to be knowing that kind of stuff, and I rather that they don't get that information about the grown-ups around them.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, they're exposed to too much grown-up stuff anyway.
So I can protect them where I can.
Yeah,
right.
For sure. Well, and it's not just like Facebook and stuff, but my son plays Xbox Live, and we had to tell him what you just said. You don't know who these people are, and we listen in on the conversation if he is on live to make sure that it's not an adult.
Right.
And then he did meet some kids from New Jersey that seem like good kids, other than every now and then they do have potty mouth, and I have to watch out for that. But I mean, other than that,
but Sam told him to stop it.
Yeah, he did.
He's like, I can't play with you anymore.
Good for him.
But it's just seems like there's so many different ways, for kids to be subjected to, this kind of stuff.
And one of the scary things is we can't monitor them all the time.
Right.
We can't sit with them. We can't be watching them. So it's really about talking to them and telling them about what the dangers are, so that you hope a little light bulb goes off in their head, like with your son, and he says, stop using those words, or I can't be friends with you, or I'm not allowed to do this. And you really just have to sort of, in some ways, let go and trust that you've done a good job from the beginning.
Right.
Are we doing a good job as parents?
Oh, that's such a loaded question.
I thought so. Yeah.
I really believe, especially as a therapist, that people can change. But I also believe that we do the best that we can with what we have. And so part of this is I tell parents, learn things. If you don't know what Facebook is, ask. If you don't know what the apps are on your kid's phone, ask them. Have them show it to you. Learn, because sometimes our kids are the ones who are going to be teaching us
Most
these things.
often.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They know more than we do about technology,
No
and I
question.
think if you start from that point, then you're in a good place.
Well, yeah. I mean, and like Liz said, we didn't grow up with it, so
Right.
but ignorance is not bliss.
Exactly.
If you're dealing with this, and another thing that may be something to tell the kids, because it's so prevalent, and Liz, you mentioned it, sort of touched on it. If you're trying to get into a good school, or you're trying to get a job eventually, this stuff does not go away,
Right.
and that might be something to let your kids know. Hey, I don't know, whatever you do, realize that when you post something, it's going to be there.
Right.
And when you go to get into a good school, or they look at that stuff.
Apply for jobs.
Right.
When you meet someone new. I teach an ethics class in our marriage and family therapy program, and the very first assignment I have my students do is Google themselves.
Yeah.
Because your clients are going to look you up, your future employers are going to look you up, your professors are going to look you up, and so I think that's a great place to start. is to
I
Google
even
yourself.
look myself up occasionally, because sometimes I don't remember what I've done.
She's trying
I'm
to
just
find
kidding.
any reference to her Roma Tomato Queen days.
There you
That's
go.
true. I was
That-
once royalty.
Yes, but
So you had a crown and
right.
all.
We're talking with Dr. Brown from the Forest Institute. We had talked about, parents, and probably on a A, B, C, D, F scale, we're probably getting a C or a C minus when it comes to coaching our kids. But what about all of the bullying that's going on in school? And how do you know the signs that your child is being bullied? Because a lot of times they won't tell their parents.
Well, and this goes to the online thing too. I mean, most
Right.
of it
Cyberbullying.
is online. The big
Cyberbullying is
cases.
horrible. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
how do you recognize the signs, and then how do you help equip that child to deal with it in a healthy way?
Well, I think in some of the similar ways that we've talked about is you talk to them about it, and signs that you want to look at is my kid acting different than the way they normally do? So if you know that, because a lot of our kids, they come home from school, they go into their room and they're doing homework,
Right.
quote unquote homework,
Yep.
but they're getting online and they're surfing and checking with friends. And so if you feel like those
Grand Theft
behaviors,
Auto.
there you go. If those behaviors start changing, that's when you want to sort of ask questions. But don't wait until then. Get involved in their life all the time.
Right, for sure.
That's hard for parents to do these days, both parents working, and it really is a job.
It is.
But you have to take it a lot more seriously than some do, and you really do have to take that time to engage with your kids.
So a way to do that, when because I'm in a two-parent household where we both work, is to use technology to your advantage. My kids are a sophomore and junior, and they text me every day when they get home because I don't know where they are.
Right.
And that just helps me sort of breathe a sigh of relief, and I can get through the afternoon.
Communication.
Of my work. Absolutely. So I'm trying to use technology to my advantage. I'm friends with my kids on Facebook. I check their phones. I know their passwords.
Right.
Whether or not I pay the bill, they're under 18. They're in my household, and that's the rule.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
Right. It's funny, though, because so many parents, they don't want to fight with their kids. They don't want to, cause a big stir. So they just go, we'll let it go. And they don't put the restrictions on them. But the fact is, they are under your roof, and they do need to, follow your rules. Do you think it's okay to spy as a parent?
It's not something I would recommend. I think that it undermines sort of the relationship that you're trying to build with your kids. But then I also get that point when you get to desperate and you're
Right.
so worried about your kid and they're not answering your questions and they're not opening up. But in general, as a rule, I would not recommend spying on your kids.
Or just don't get caught.
Right.
Yeah, right.
You almost caught me on that one. I think it's just to have an open relationship from the beginning. If
Yeah.
you're going to have Facebook, then I need to have your password.
Right.
If you're going to have a cell phone and put a lock on it, I need to know the code to get into it.
Right.
And then build that trust. I don't check my kids on a regular basis, but they know if I ask, they can hand it over.
Yeah.
And they know if I'm worried, then I'm going to look.
Yeah.
Well, and on this topic of social media, obviously the kids, that's one thing. What about adults? I mean, how do we deal with that? I mean, you hear about all these people that get divorced because of Facebook. I mean, my thought has always been, well, it's not Facebook. That's not the reason they got divorced.
Right,
Obviously,
it's
they
the person
had problems
on it.
before Facebook,
Right,
probably. But, what about, adults and how they handle it and spying and all that stuff. The same stuff, but only with adults.
Well, we're role models to our kids, so I sort of connect that parenting piece to adults. But man, adults get in trouble on social media as well. I do have a lot of clients who come in, and Facebook is a huge issue. And I agree with you. It's not like Facebook caused this problem, but Facebook makes things accessible, like old boyfriends who look a lot more appealing than your husband, or this really pretty picture that you're enjoying looking at.
Right.
And that can be problematic. So, Facebook is causing problems in relationships.
And even if it's like an innocent thing, or quote unquote an innocent thing, it could still make your significant other jealous or whatever. If you're on there talking with some old flame, that could just be the issue, even though you don't mean anything by it. Maybe, I don't know.
And even the further step is they're spending all their time on Facebook. So
Right.
what if they're just playing Candy Crush? Well, that's time you're spending on Candy Crush rather than your partner. So it can be a time suck as well as an attention suck.
Right.
We're Kevin and Liz. We're talking with Dr. Brown from the Forrest Institute, and I want to know what your take is, because I know you counsel a lot of married couples on porn, if you don't mind my saying.
Do you like
Jump
it?
right there.
Do you enjoy it?
First question, how much do you want? No. That's another thing that's become unreasonably accessible.
Right.
And so many marriages are in trouble because of it. Some men don't think it's cheating, and now I'm not going to put it all on men. There's probably women that do the same thing, but they don't see it as cheating. What's your advice?
So if I have a couple who comes in and talks to me about porn as an issue, the first thing I'm going to say is, well, what's reasonable to you? Because I think we have societal norms, but throw that out the window. It's what is causing problems with that couple. Because for some couples, porn is a healthy part of their relationship, but that's the key word, part of their relationship.
Right.
And so if I have a couple who's presenting with that issue, I'm going to say, hey, well, what do you think about it? What's reasonable? What's okay?
Right.
What doesn't feel threatening to the relationship between the two of you in real life?
Yeah. I mean, you got to, just like anything, I guess, you got to be on the same page.
Exactly.
And if you're not on the same page, then whether it's porn or ag reports,
Right.
it's a rift.
Right.
So,
And even further than that, it's what's their page that they're on, not their
Right.
uncles, not their moms, not their cousins, not the lady in the grocery store. It's what's good for that couple.
okay.
What do you say to parents or married couples, not necessarily parents, but so many times financial problems are the root of the problem and in a marriage. And how do you guide married couples through that? Because it can really wreck you if you're fighting about finances.
Money can be really stressful, and usually couples come in one of two places. They either completely disagree on how to handle the money, or they agree they just don't have enough of it. I mean,
Right.
That's the biggest problem.
That's always the problem in my house.
Yeah, so a lot of couples feel like that's why they're arguing, because they're just stressed. And so really just talking to them about what their values are around money. We talk about roles and responsibilities. Whose job is it to pay the bills? Whose strength is that? And nowadays I'm finding more and more it's in heterosexual relationships, it's the women who are balancing the checkbooks and paying the bills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
They're
the way
more
it is at my
organized,
house.
generally.
Yeah.
I don't know. In my house, we're on the same page with the financial thing. We both procrastinate. We just put it in
You're
the
on the
drawer. I don't want to think
procrastination
about
page.
it. Let's watch Wahlburgers.
In denial.
I'm not right. And until somebody's knocking on the door, but I mean that is a tough thing. And you mentioned something that and we've talked about this before, about how people get married and they plan the wedding down to the last little detail, and yet when it comes to stuff like paying bills, just regular day-to-day stuff, they've never even talked about it.
Those are important conversations to have before you come together as a couple.
Yes.
And part of that is figuring out, well, what'd you learn about money growing up?
Right.
What were the values? What's important to you? So, sometimes we talk about the difference between experiences versus materialistic things. And if you've got a couple who's on a different page about that, they're going to totally disagree what to do with their tax refund.
Yes.
Or a bonus,
Right.
or what are you going to do over spring break?
Yeah.
Well, someone wants to buy a giant TV and the other one wants to go to the beach.
Right.
So it's really talking to them about negotiating the other stuff instead of the dollar amounts.
When you're doing that, say and you've been married, and everything else is going great, but you have that thing, and you've never done it before. What's a good way to approach it for a couple that's been together? But hey, and they know that they don't agree. But how do you get into that?
Right.
What's a good way to get into that? Or is there
slowly?
One? Yeah.
Definitely slowly. And we talk all the time. Lots of therapists will say, use I statements. Start from a place, this is what you want. Because I know when someone comes at me with you, I immediately get on the defensive.
Well, sure.
But if someone says, I really want this, or my husband comes to me and say, I would really like to get this, that's an easier place to have a conversation than saying, you never get me anything.
Right. It's not as
you get to buy everything, or whatever it is.
Okay.
Around my house, and when we have extra money, it's me saying we need to put a new roof on, and him saying we need new golf clubs.
Right. Well, golf clubs obviously the priority.
But
depends on the season, right?
Fortunately, I have better sense than that. But it is amazing how many couples don't talk about these things. They go, "Oh, well, we'll work that out as we go."
Right.
No, these can be deal breakers, and it's not just about money. It's about how do you keep your home, and how are you going to discipline kids? Do you want kids?
Right.
I mean, it blows my mind how many young people getting married don't even know if the other one wants kids.
And when you do have kids, a lot of times, I know we didn't really talk. We talked about a lot of stuff. We've got 2 kids, but we didn't really talk about our parenting style or what it would
values.
be. Right. I mean, we talked about things that we hoped and dreamed for our kids and all that, but and in some cases, I mean, usually we're together on most stuff, but I mean, sometimes it's like something to me is not a big deal.
Right.
I mean, this could be true with financial, with kids, with any issue. To me, it's either not a big deal or maybe it is, and then to her it is or it isn't. But we're find ourselves on opposite positions, and I'm like, gosh, and mostly it's me thinking it's not a big deal. But I mean, how is it the same way? You just have to force yourself to sit down and talk about these things.
Definitely, and I would say not in front of your kids.
Yeah,
right.
Solidarity.
Oh yeah, because kids are so smart.
Oh,
they absolutely know what's up,
Yeah.
and they know who to go to for what.
Yes.
And so you don't want to give them any other reason to divide the two of you.
Right.
I
And so when
remember as a kid manipulating my parents.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
know who to go to when I wanted
Me
something.
too.
I would
Daddy.
still manipulate my parents if I could. I mean, why wouldn't I?
Yeah,
I will.
absolutely.
I do. So yeah, that's
So, telling parents just sometimes, because kids come at you, they want immediate information. And so tell them to take a step back
Right.
and confer with each other, be on the same team. And then if you're alone or your partner's out of town or at work and you can't connect with them, then backing them up. Even if you disagreed with them,
Right.
don't do that again in front of the kids. So like if I make a decision while my husband's at work, he can come home and say, that wouldn't have been what I would do, but I'm not going to say anything in front of the kids. I'm
Right.
going to have your back.
right. That's
yeah.
good.
My dad used to really cover his butt and say, "What'd your mother say?"
Yeah.
Right.
That's not a bad thing because
No.
sometimes kids will, think, "Oh yeah, I'm supposed to ask my mom. I forgot about that."
Sometimes, in other situations where if it's something that I maybe don't think is a big deal, but I know it's going to make my wife upset, I'll tell the kid, "Hey, I don't know, you're going to make your mom mad."
Yeah. Wait till your dad gets home. That's what we used to hear
It's
all
an
the
oldie
time.
but a
Yeah,
goodie.
it works.
It's not a bad
you just
thing.
wait
Right.
till your dad
Right.
gets home.
Well, you don't want to defer that the dad does it alone, but you're saying, I'm going to wait for my partner so
Yeah.
together we can tell you what we think.
Right. Well, listen, it's Clear Channel's In Touch with the Ozarks, and Dr. Christina Brown is our guest, licensed marriage, marital, and family therapist. And, we're talking about, obviously, all kinds of issues. To me, and Liz, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, there's been a lot of really weird and violent and just horrible,
disturbing
things in the news lately. And, it's like, I don't know if it's just because I'm watching more news, but I've always been a news junkie. You can't turn the news on without seeing something horrible. They show the things on TV now. They talk more about it openly.
Sensationalized.
How, and even if it's just the raw photo of a murder scene or something, they used to not pop that up on the screen.
That's
I try
right.
to keep that stuff away from the kids. I don't know what effect it's having on kids. I know that for me, I actually get depressed.
I do too.
A little bit sometimes watching this stuff, and you get one thing after another. You can. We don't have to do it here. Obviously there was a big event here in Springfield involving the little girl, Haley Owens, and that was just everybody was like, oh my God. But even stuff that could happen thousands of miles away.
We're impacted.
You're impacted because it's in front of you. It's on TV every day. I mean, how can we deal with violence? I know this is kind of a wide open thing, but the violence and the negative, bad stuff that we're bombarded with. Right. If we watch TV, if we watch the news, if we care about the world, you want to know what's going on.
Right.
So you can't just say no, I'm not going to watch it. But how do you deal with it?
Well, and a follow up to that before you answer is when your children do see it on TV, how do you let them know that not to be, afraid, because they don't want to live in fear. You don't want them to live in fear.
Right. Really just, again, I'm going to say things again, talking to them about it, monitoring what they're doing. There are things we can control. Like, you wouldn't let small kids see rated R movies or violence in video games. There's things that you have control over, and unfortunately the world we don't have control over. So
True.
if they, so going back to Haley Owens, talking to your kids about that and what that meant, and normalizing their fears, but then also talking to them about, I'm really nervous about that, but that doesn't mean I'm going to wrap you up in bubble wrap and keep you in your room for the rest of your life. Just talking to them, and again, using I statements, checking in with them, hey, did they mention this at school? Did you guys talk about it? Did your teacher say anything?
Again, communication.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's one of those things that most of our intakes we get at the Murney Clinic are communication issues with couples. But that's really the place to start and intervene, and, saying and asking questions and being interested.
It's such a tightrope, though, with children, because, and I found myself when Buster was a little kid, riding that line between giving them just enough information to satisfy them, but not too much information where they just obsess on it and they can't. I remember right after 9/11, Buster coming to me and saying, "Is a plane going to come and crash us?"
Right.
Is what he said. And realistically, you want to say, no, that would never happen here.
But you don't know.
But you don't know. But you don't want them to be. I mean, how do you do that?
It's really developmentally appropriate. So I'm thinking he was probably little around that time.
10.
Yeah. And so at that time, for kids, everything's about them. How is this thing that's happening out in the world impacting them?
Right.
And that's the place to talk about, because you can't promise that a plane's never going to crash. But you can talk about, the things that you do to make him feel safe. Ask him how he feels safe, or places that he wouldn't feel safe. So again, breaking the world into a smaller piece that's really right around them, because that's what they care about.
I know that we are planning a vacation, and it's been like one of our kids has never been on a plane, and the other one was too young to remember it. So he was all excited. The boy was all excited about Sam. He's all excited about going on a plane. And then this Malaysian Airlines thing happened.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not freaking out about it, but I noticed he's asking me a lot of questions about it lately. What's going on with it? Have they found it? How did they, I wonder how long it took them to sink to the bottom.
Right.
And it could be just curiosity.
But what's going on in his head, really?
Well, both. I think he's curious, but then he's also thinking about, how does this thing that's happening on TV impact me?
Right.
Okay, well, I'm getting on a plane soon. And so those are the connections. And so, you can make those same connections and say, so it sounds like you might be a little nervous about when we get on a plane.
Right.
Well, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to be sitting right next to you. They're going to tell you what you need to do. You're going to feel this. These are some of the sounds that are going to make. So really just reassuring them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean,
and you personally, Kevin, might want to take a Xanax.
No, there's no might
so that
want
you
to.
don't,
No, I
so
will.
that you don't make your children
and
nervous.
Daddy's going to be sleeping.
Right next to him. If you need something, just ask Mommy.
The only thing that I did do really was to say, first of all, two things. We're not going to be flying Malaysian Airlines. Secondly, from what I heard, and I don't even know if this is a real statistic, but I use it anyway. It's like, they have like 50,000 flights every single day in the United States. Every day, and you never hear about plane crashes. I mean, when you do, it's so rare. I mean, and so I try to use that.
You're actually more likely to win the lottery, I think.
Yeah, or get in a car wreck, too. So, I try to use it if I have any statistics, just how rare an incident it is. I mean,
and you want to think about, though, how they're going to take it. So, for example, you made the joke about a car wreck. Well, then you don't want to turn your kid into afraid of getting in the car.
Right.
So it's sort of that, I mean, sometimes as parents, we're just kind of stuck. What do we say?
Right.
And I think it's just being, taking it slow and being honest and answering questions.
That sounds like the answer to almost everything.
Absolutely, it really is. The trick is with relationships is communication, and asking questions and starting with I statements. I mean, that's a great place to start for every relationship you have.
Yeah.
We're not all good communicators.
Nope.
And some of us grew up in families that didn't talk at all.
Yeah.
And when they did, it was something angry that they were shouting at each other. And so when you become a parent and you've been in an environment like that all your life, it's hard to find the words.
It really
so
is.
what resources can they go to?
If I had a couple coming in and ask me that, I would say turn to your partner and ask them what it was like in their household. Maybe it was different. Maybe they learned some different ways on how to do it. And then we also have great programs. There's lots of different relationship classes you can take. There's lots of great self-help books to talk about that talk about different ways to do it. Because again, one doesn't fit everybody. You have to sort of find out what fits for you.
Let's talk a little bit about those classes that are available and how people can get in touch with you, get involved if they have an issue that they'd like to try to work out. How does that work?
So at the Robert J. Murney Clinic at Forest Institute, we're located on South Campbell across from Parkview High School. We offer lots of different relationship classes for couples. We have a family communication workshop, and they can call Murney Clinic or check onto our website and get some information about that. We also have therapists at the Murney Clinic. Students are being trained in marriage and family therapy. We offer a master's degree and a postgraduate degree certificate, as well as we have other master's and doctoral programs.
So it's a school and a place for people to come get help.
Absolutely, yep. And
I
we
feel
serve
like
the community.
I feel like I've been working with Kevin for so long that I should get an honorary doctorate.
You should.
Yeah.
Okay.
In relationships.
So you can work on that.
Yeah.
But the cost of these classes is fantastic.
Absolutely. They're definitely low cost. They're there to meet your needs because we want people to come and take advantage of those opportunities.
I hear couples all the time say, we need help, but we just can't afford it.
Right.
Well, and then also some couples, there may be a slight stigma attached. It wasn't that many years ago where people didn't talk about getting therapy,
right.
And certainly were embarrassed by it. But what could you say to ease somebody's mind about it if they know they need help, but they don't know about the
So I might do some motivational questions like, what's going to happen if you don't? Are you going to still keep being stuck in those same places? Why not let someone help you think differently or try something new? They might have an idea or a perspective that you don't have because you're sort of stuck in that tunnel vision of the problems you've got.
Right.
I think men especially see it as a weakness to go get help or ask for help. How do you overcome that?
Again, it depends on what they're showing up for. Because sometimes we'll have, if I have a heterosexual couple coming in and the guy's called, sometimes we know that they're in a lot of trouble because usually it means the wife has given an ultimatum or the girlfriend has given an ultimatum saying, we need to do this or else.
Right.
And so part of our job as a therapist, and one of the things we train our marriage and family therapists to do is to learn how to connect with them in the room. They learn right away how to develop a relationship to motivate and inspire them to come back.
But you have to want to go. Otherwise you're wasting your time, right?
You do. It is better if the client has some hope. But we have a lot of couples who come in, they're either referred by their parole and probation or they're required, or one of the partner is given an ultimatum and saying, I'm leaving unless you go.
What about, let's say, either a relationship between a husband and wife or man and woman or anyone who has a romantic relationship, they can't get the significant other to go. Is it okay for one to go, or how does that?
Definitely.
Okay.
I would definitely encourage, if you can't get your partner to go into therapy, that you should go by yourself.
And same with the
tell
parent.
your partner
because it can't hurt, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It helps you sort of have a support system, and then part of our job as therapists is to teach clients and help them develop their own support system so that they don't need to be in therapy.
And that's
forever.
Also true, I'm assuming, with parents who can't get their kids to go or whatever. Maybe.
Definitely.
Right.
Because, again, it goes back to you want to be on the same page as your partner. So if you can't get your kid to come into family therapy, then mom and dad should come in and definitely talk about some of the things that they're stressing out about or disagreeing over.
Yeah.
Dr. Brown, in the time that we have left, give us all of the contact information so that folks that are interested in either marital counseling or, just getting with you to get some new ideas about how to parent better and all those other things, the classes that are offered.
So a great place to start is just to give the Robert J. Murney Clinic a call. Again, they're on South Campbell, 1322 South Campbell, across from Parkview High School. The phone number there is 865-8943.
865-8943.
Yep, and they can give a call, and the people there are going to check their information, and we do have some therapists who take insurance. We have sliding fee, which are typically our graduate trainees, and then we have lots of relationship classes as well.
That's great. And the relationship classes can be fun.
I've heard a lot of really good things about those relationship classes.
That's part of our job, is to make it fun, to engage them.
Yeah, and you don't have to even have a problem to take a relationship class. It's just something to do. Hey, let's try this. Make things better.
And certainly young couples that are getting ready to be parents.
Yep. They can talk about those.
That is going to change your marriage like you've never seen before.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about coming to therapy, but I also want to say that if you're interested in becoming a therapist, checking out the School of Professional Psychology, our website is forest.edu, forest.edu, and we have 4 different master's programs and a doctorate in clinical psychology. So we really have different specialties and different areas of interest for everybody out there who is interested in the field of behavioral health.
That's great. Well, everybody ought to be interested in it. It'd be a better world.
I have always been interested in it, and as I said, I should really get a honorary doctorate.
You need a lot of therapy.
I should. Yeah, I should get a therapist.
She wants to be doctorless.
I see. Hey, thank you so much, Dr. Christina Brown. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Very enlightening. Yes, thanks for your time.
And again, if you have, if you'd like to contact Dr. Brown, you can go to 865-8943. That's the phone number, 865-8943, or forest.edu.
Yes.
That's 1R, forest.edu. Kevin and Liz, this has been Clear Channels In Touch with the Ozarks. Channels In Touch with the Ozarks. Channels In Touch with the Ozarks. Channels In Touch with the Ozarks.